What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Nerd Squish, and today we're going to talk about the Astounding Wolfman. Whether they're superheroes or villains, there's no lack of monsters in comic books. We have Man-Bat, Creature Commandos, Werewolf by Night, Man-Thing, Swamp Thing, and even the Universal Monsters. But today, I want to talk about one that is criminally underrated and also one of my favorites, that being the Astounding Wolfman. Created by Robert Kirkman and Jason Howard, the series first dropped at Free Comic Book Day 2007. And let's just acknowledge the cover of this very first issue. I mean, you know they were gonna hook people. Okay, free comics, okay, sure, that's exciting, right? But a lot of free comics, it's like, okay, whatever, you go on that day, you pick them up. Look at this cover. This was gonna get people. The series follows the trials and tribulations of Gary Hampton, a wealthy businessman who gets attacked while on vacation with his family. After becoming a werewolf, he learns to control his animalistic instincts and use his wolf powers for good. I'm going to stop right there before we go any further. I'm going to throw up a spoiler warning. If you want to dive into the series without knowing all the gory details, stop what you're doing. Head to your local comic book store and go pick up this series. You will not regret it. So now that we got that out the way, we're going to talk about what I like to refer to as Werewolf Batman. You'll see. Now, this series does not waste any time establishing characters or backstory. We just go all in. We're starting off right at the attack, or right after the attack. Our very first page shows Gary lying on the ground, slashed and bleeding, as his wife Rebecca and daughter Chloe are just freaking out and trying to reassure him that everything is going to be okay. Then we jump 1 month later, where he wakes up in Mercy Hospital and he transforms into a werewolf himself. He has no memory of his first few transformations and only finds out he's a werewolf when he sees the footage that was caught on his home security camera. After putting the pieces together, a strange man just appears in his home. Zechariah, who is a vampire that's here to teach Gary how to harness his wolf powers. Gary, always being one that wanted to help people, he loves this new life because he can take these werewolf powers and use them for good to protect his city. And the city, hesitant at first, even come around to loving their new wolfy protector. Gary sees becoming a werewolf as the best thing that's ever happened to him. And then shit hits the fan. He loses his company, he's evicted from his home, he accidentally kills a superhero, and the vampire that he's trusted all along? Well, your boy Zechariah kills Rebecca, Gary's wife. And to make matters even worse, their daughter Chloe, who already is not fond of this whole werewolf lifestyle of her father, finds him holding the bloody, lifeless body of her mother. Now, after this happens, Gary's secret is out to the world. Everyone knows that he is the famous Wolfman, and they all blame him for the murder of his wife, including his daughter. And Gary doesn't know what to do, okay? He doesn't think anyone's gonna believe him, because not only does he look the way he does, but the way he was found and all these things. So he naturally runs off into the woods, the very woods where he was attacked, to find the werewolf that turned him. Meanwhile, Chloe seeks out Zechariah to learn from this vampire how to kill her werewolf father and avenge her mother's death. Poor Gary is really going through it. He's a classic Batman type character. Rich dude, okay, he experiences this terrible tragedy and then vows to make sure that no one experiences the terrible things that he has. Billionaires usually suck, right? You know, they have all the money in the world to help people and change things for the better, and they usually don't. And even before becoming a werewolf, Gary was always the type of guy that used his fortune to help others. He's an extremely likable character, and you really do feel for the guy. And our main villain, Zechariah, he is fantastic. After all, what is a superhero without a really great villain. He's this character that you kind of go back and forth with. You shouldn't like him, but there's something about him that he's interesting. We do dive a little bit into his origin story. Basically, he was turned into a vampire when life was really hard for him as a human. No job, no money. He had already lost a child. He had another one on the way. Much like Gary, when he was first turned, he wanted to use his powers for good to protect his city. So instead of popping every jugular vein that he saw, he only drained the blood from people that were bad, murderers, rapists, people of that nature, right? But on the flip side of that, he also wanted to create a vampire society that would rule the world. And the worst part about this is that you're finding out his origin story as he's telling it to this old man dying in a hospital, and then you find out that that's his son. And then he kills him. So then you're like, oh, okay, cool, well, yeah, I don't like this guy. It was right to hate him from the beginning, so. At the end of the day, he's a good old trickster, right? He only helps people when it benefits him, and you kind of love to hate him. Now, despite all the loss and the tragedy, Gary does get to reconcile with Chloe, and he does get to finally live out his life as the superhero that he's always dreamed of being. After defeating Zachariah and the elder werewolf that turned him, he essentially becomes the leader of this pack of werewolves who previously just blindly followed the elder because that's just the way it was. So he uses this to not only improve their lives and teach them how to live as humans, but he also trains them to become superheroes to form this pack of superhero werewolves, which is that's just cool. Then again, if you've watched my videos before and you know my love for Big Wolf, you know that I love a superhero werewolf. That's just my jam. Now, the truly great thing about Gary is that he helps people even when he doesn't really plan to. One day he starts working with this werewolf that claims that Gary saved his life, and Gary's like, bro, I've literally never seen you before and don't know who you are. The very first night that Gary transformed into a werewolf, he attacked an old man on a roof, and he thought that he had killed him because, he can't remember fully, right? But he kind of remembers flashes and glimpses of things that happen. So for this particular incident, he always kind of wondered and hoped that it was all just a dream. This werewolf, who is called Grey Wolf, was that old man. He was a retired CIA agent battling cancer with only 6 months left to live. But because of the bite, his cancer was cured and he was once again able to work for the Global Defense Agency alongside Gary. So speaking of memory and all of that when Gary transforms, let's kind of break down this lore because it is, for the most part, the same as most things you see, right? In the sense that when there's a full moon, Gary has no choice. He's transforming into a werewolf. And on these particular nights, he is kind of out of control. He can remember certain things, but his human mind is not fully in control of his body. Those animalistic werewolf instincts kind of kick in. However, the lore differs in the fact that he can kind of transform at will at night, and his human mind, full human mind, remains intact. He cannot, however, transform during the day, which brings me back to Batman. Remember how I compared him to Batman? Just like the Bat, he has a secret bunker where he keeps his car, costume, and wonderful toys. He also keeps a device down there that restrains him on the nights of the full moon where he cannot control himself. Perhaps one of the coolest things that Wolfman has is these bracers that actually absorb and retain moonlight, and he can actually use this to stay transformed as a werewolf during the daytime for up to 2 hours.
Where does he get those wonderful toys?
The Astounding Wolfman does take place in the same universe as Invincible, as they do cross paths in a 2-part series titled Invincible versus the Astounding Wolfman. They start off fighting, but then Mark is actually one of the first people that believes Gary's innocence and knows that he didn't kill his wife, so then they start fighting alongside each other. Now, the unfortunate thing about this beautiful series is that this is it. That's it. It's done. It's over. Now, I understand that your boy, Gary, does appear in Invincible. I don't know the full extent of it because Invincible's got a lot. I think it's a pretty long series. I'm not well versed, right? I've read the first couple of issues, but I would like to dive back into the series to see if I can find a glimpse of Gary besides just the two-part series that he was featured in. I'm also impatiently waiting for the day that the Astounding Wolfman appears in the Invincible TV series, or maybe even gets a series of his own. The way I would scream, I don't care where you live, what state, what country, you would hear me. I just love this character so much because he's Werewolf Batman, which that's quite possibly the coolest thing that has ever existed. I mean, you could tell, okay? Look behind me, look at this shelf. We got werewolves and we got Batman, so like this is where I live. We're taking the classic horror story of the tragic life of a werewolf, and we're combining it with vigilante justice. That right there is the perfect story, in my opinion. So if you have not read this amazing series, please go check it out. I highly recommend it. It's only 25 issues, or you can collect it in like one big collection, or like I have 4 collections or volumes. So there you have it. That is my little deep dive and thoughts and opinions on one of my favorite comic book series of all time, The Astounding Wolfman. Now I'm curious, have you read the series? Do you like it? Let me know in the comments. And yes, you know, here we are. We're talking about werewolves again. I can't stop, okay? I cannot stop. It's a sickness. I've got my werewolf books, I got my werewolf shelf, I got my Rougarou shirt. I can't be stopped. Help. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so when new videos hit the channel, you'll be notified. And obviously, if you like werewolves, if you like comics, if you like horror, Halloween, and all things nerdy, you're gonna want to stick around, because that's what we do here at Nerd Squish. And as always, thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later!